Hey up everybody, welcome back. Right, I'm going to finish off here today. That last video was long, wasn't it? I was surprised actually when I got to do the editing, and it sort of shows you how long all the bits are. It was so long in fact that I took a little bit out. So I'll show you that bit now. Now I managed to get the pedal tap apart with some information from Andreas, who must have been working on it as well. I'd noticed in this filter this bit of solder here, and I thought he was soldering it onto this part, but as you can see it's threaded, and that is a little nut that screws into to hold that one. So when I was able to take that off, I then soaked this, and with a lead hammer I managed to knock it out. So these are the component parts. There's another little seal in there, so we'll put it together and I'll show you how it works, if I can put it together, because it's a bit fiddly. That goes in there like that. Right. Then our lever goes in there. Then you'll see that little hole there. That goes in. I don't know if you can notice, but this has flats on it as well, which go in there. And that goes together like that. Now, when that's over here in the ordinary position, this little hole here is just up against the wall of this tube. So the fuel will only go down until it gets to there. But then when you move this over, I don't know if you can see that, can you see it? You'll line another hole up so that it'll actually feed through that way. Isn't that clever? And then, as I say, this actually screws on. He says this actually screws on. It actually does. Maybe I've got a bit of lead in there from the lead hammer. Anyway, that's how it works, and it's all gone back together. Then when the various bits here are screwed on, that will screw onto there. Like so. And this other bit will screw onto the bottom, and there we have our tap. Isn't that clever? If you wonder what this is, it's a socket that just fits on tight. So again, we have our little washers, we have our little nipples, so all that will go together, and when it's all tightened up, there we go. I'm glad I got that to work, because as you can see it's really nice and it's original. So let me sort the end of this thread out and screw that on, and that's done. So now we've got the pedal tap on. I've put some hose on it, the clips and everything, so that's all done. So what we're going to do today is we're going to put the alternator on. So we've got the little couple of wires to go through, and then we can put the exhaust pipe on and the footrest on and the rear brake lever pedal and all that sort of stuff, and then we might even get to put some petrol in it and see if it'll start. So let me get the bits out and we'll start with the alternator. Right, now then, as you know, I originally made up some little pieces to go on here because the newer 12 volt alternator, the stator part of it anyway, is smaller than the old open coil type one. But then in the end I broke down and I actually bought the proper mounting ring. So as I say, it came in a kit, which was nice, with the mounting ring, the studs to go in here to mount the ring to the chain case, and then actually I guess bolts for that, and then studs to put the alternator on. So let's see what we've got here. We've got a ring. We have 1, 2, 3 of them. which I presume are for that. Now, is there a front and back to that? No, looks, oh, well, yes, we're socketed on that side. So that goes on there, like that, I suppose. And there will go in there. Hold that. As I say, I still can't believe that making this, all the machining that goes into that, for every one of them, wouldn't have been offset by the cost of just changing the casting of this slightly to move these bosses in. Anyway, I'll screw that on and then put these studs in, and then there's little spacing pieces, 3 little spacing pieces, 3 lock nuts, and 3 lock washers. Now I wonder if those lock washers are supposed to go under these fellas here. Well, no, because they won't fit into there. So, bit belts and braces. So we'll put that up, and then we've got 2 minor problems. This older wire has got a bit like that, and as you can see, the wires are going to come out here, so they're going to really go close to that. Although I suppose if they're going to go over the top, that'll probably hold them out the way. That's good. I was thinking I would fasten them to this, but what I will do, you know, one of the things about wires getting old is they get stiff, is I'm going to get, actually it's my wife's old hairdryer, and warm this up to make it pliable when we feed it through there. But I've got to put a couple of connectors on the end of that for there, which means more soldering, which, as you know, isn't my strong point. Now, one other thing is we have this piece which goes on there. You can see it's got flats, and they go inside those flats there to lock it in. And then the rotor goes on that, and the rotor is keyed. Well, see the size of that keyway? That is a lot bigger than the key that fits the slot in the key in, excuse me, in the rotor. There it is, and there's that one. So I ordered a couple of keys for sort of the older engine and the newer engine and what have you, and they're all coming out the same size to fit this, so they won't, you know, they're a loose fit in that. So what I'm going to have to do is get a key for that, and then what I'll have to do is mill off, I'll hold it in the vise and mill off a little bit on each side of the key, so that it's going to be the bottom curved part of it is going to be the right size to fit in there, and the bit that sticks up to go into the keyway in the rotor will be the slightly smaller dimension. I don't want to just put the smaller key in and have it loose in there, because although we're not keying the rotor on where the rotor is going to be pulling. You know, in fact, like with the PVL, it's not even keyed on. The pressure of the nut is going to hold that all right. It's just spinning. I mean, it's not like this sprocket that's actually got some torque trying to turn the rotor on the shaft. So I'm sure we could probably even do without it. But hey, they put one in, so let's see if we can organise that to fit right. So let me screw all this together and then we'll come back. Just when you think you're almost there, put the ring on, put the studs in and everything. But look at this. The rotor's about 1/4 of an inch in from there, and I mean it should basically be flush. I will be more than a little miffed if when I phone Hitchcock's tomorrow they tell me, ah yes, well when they started fitting these rings they machined 1/4 of an inch off each of these bosses, because that means everything's got to come off so that I can mill the 1/4 inch off to get that on there. And that wire is going to have to go in through the back. Can't come over the top, I don't think. So I'll have to lengthen that a little bit. That is a real bummer. So although it isn't the end of the video, it is the end of work for today. Well, you know, because being 5 hours ahead, Hitchcocks have closed by now. So until we see you again. So I've called Hitchcocks and told them my problem, and they checked back on my order and made sure I'd bought the right collar and everything, and they said no, it should just fit. One thing they did tell me which confused me was, he said, well, it depends on which alternator and all the rest of it, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm not an expert on these things, but I thought they were all the same size. I remember I did find out that the ET one was a slightly smaller diameter rotor, sorry, larger diameter rotor, because when I fitted a different rotor in the same stator, it was too much of a gap, you may remember, on that C15. But I have several of these alternators that I've taken off bikes, and I always keep the rotor and the stator together. You know, I use the stator as a keeper for the magnets. So I checked, and I had a couple of different part numbers, so I guess there were different alternators, but they're all the same dimensions. So anyway, we have got approximately 3/16 for this to come out. It comes to just where this sort of little chamfer is, and then it's central on a longitudinal line. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to machine the ring a little bit. So let me take it off and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Now what I'm going to do is, as I say, I need just on 3/16. So when you look at this, you'll notice that this has a little part that sticks up, which is a 1/16 or just slightly more. And on this side, those studs are actually 1/8 of an inch short this side. So I can take a 1/16 off here and still get a full thread into that. Then on this side we have the same thing. This sticks up a little bit more on the 1/16. I've measured the recess and all that. We're going to have plenty of meat if I just mill that flat on that side and mill that flat on that side, and we're going to have, you know, 5 30-seconds instead of 6 30-seconds. So let me just screw these out and go and set this up on the mill and just whip those off, and then we'll see how it fits. I've done a bit of machining, bolted everything on, and as you can see, we're just nicely up to this little chamfer. So that's all on nicely. Nicely this, nicely that. Anyway, this, as you can see, if it goes through there, well, you probably can't see it, but anyway, it's not going to be long enough. So I have found, again, off an old wiring harness, a couple of pieces of wire with the right kind of bullet connectors, because we don't have a lot of space to get through. Hang on a second. There you go. We don't have a lot of space here. I've got you get these rubber grommets, and actually they're split grommets, so you just put them round, push them in. Well, they go underneath and then they get squished up. So I can't put sort of modern ones on here. So I'll put the bullet type ones on, a little bit longer, and then we'll get the old hairdryer out and make this more flexible and get that out through there. Alright, I've solved one problem here, then I found another one and managed to solve that. So the first problem, you may remember, was this wide keyway in there, but the narrow keyway in there. So what I've done is I've taken a wide key that fits into that, hope you can see this, and I've machined it a little on each side, the right depth. So now that's thick at the bottom to fit in there. Let me just knock that in, make sure it's a good fit. And that should now fit into the thin part there. So there we have our key sorted. Alright. Then I noticed when I looked at the stator I was going to use, as I was getting ready to sort of make this a little, you can see how stiff it is. In there you can actually see the copper. The wires are just about ready to break down into the alternator. So I went and had a look around. And on a B44 engine, late B44 engine that's there, I found one perfect here. Not only that, but it's got the connectors on the end, so I'm all ready to go, and it's a bit longer. So again, you can see how stiff that is. So we're going to have to heat this up to get it nice and pliable and flexible, and then we can put it in. So now we come to the next problem. It's been problem after problem, and that is this: how stiff these wires, well, it's not the wires, how stiff the outer coating gets on these. So that's going to go on that way, and we've got to get it to come out of this hole. It's got to come out the hole at the back, unfortunately not the one at the front, because the cable's got to go in that one, or the cable's going to be rubbing on here, and it's going to be a nasty curve. So what I've done is I've drilled a little hole in that and put a little cable tie in, the hope being that when I get this on and get this flexible enough, I could pull it up against this, the ring, and then it'll be flexible enough to go out the back, and then it'll be right up in the air, clear of the chain. So let me get on with that. What I'm going to do, as I say, is I'm going to heat this up with a good old hairdryer, and that will make that get somewhat more flexible, and hopefully then I can feed it all through. So that'll take a while, because it takes a good bit to actually heat this stuff up, and I'm probably going to have to do it in sections. Heat this end up, get it through, gradually heating it up and getting it flexible and getting it up to here. So we'll see about that. I'll maybe film some of it and speed it up or something like that. But before we start that, I have a little erratum, I guess. Was it Gary commented on the last one? I had another senior moment and got my clevis pins and my cotter pins mixed up. This split pin here in the States is called a cotter pin. And of course what we would call a cotter pin is this here. This is your standard BSA kickstart one. And of course for us a cotter pin is a locking pin that has an angled flat face on it, that if this was a shaft here, that would have a flat face on it as well, and the two flat faces go in and lock at right angles. So anyway, I got it wrong. A clevis pin here is a clevis pin, but that split pin is a cotter pin, if that makes any sense. So let me get ready with the heater, and then I'll turn you back on. Now that noise you could hear was the hairdryer, which is why I'm not filming it. But as you can see, it makes the stuff nice and flexible, but of course it goes stiff again as it cools down. And I've been heating that up for quite a while. So what I'm going to do is, I've got an oil-filled radiator. You know, one of those things that looks like a radiator, but it's electric, full oil. So it's a nice, safe form of heat. In other words, there's no flames or anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this sort of on a box next to it, and layer that onto the heater and let it get really warm, really flexible. I'll have to put my gloves on, and then feed it through and maybe keep topping the heat up a little bit with the hairdryer. So let me go and get that set up, and we'll come back. So just to show you what I was talking about, there's the setup. I've got the stator out of the way a bit, but all the rest of it is going to be heated up nicely, and I can move things around. So that's going to take a while. I'll go and do something else, and you go make a cup of tea. Right, the cable's all nice and philoloppy. See if we can get this on quickly. There's those two wires up through there. Too far. Get it on there. Sight of the wires now, there they are. They've gone over there. You know what? Yeah, except it won't. I was going to say it would be easier to get that onto there and then put the ring on, but then you can't get at the three things that hold the screws that hold the ring on. See, it's hardened up already. Damn! Ooh, it's right close to the chain. Let me go and get a light. Well, I'm nearly there, but this of course is hardened up again. So as I said, I thought I might have to work on it a little bit with the hairdryer. So what I'm going to do is try and warm up this little bit here so I can just get it up into position. Actually, because it hardens up, if I soften it and get it up out of the way and then let it set up again, it should keep it in place. So let me do that. Now I gave this a severe looking at, and although these three mounting screws for the actual ring won't come out past the stator, I could slacken them one at a time, going round little bit, so they've come out as a whole. So what I'm going to do is warm this up, fasten it up out of the way, and then we should be good. Well, I've heated it up again, got the little blue cable tie on, it's gone all soft. As I say, I've got the cable tie on, so now we've got to see if we can get this thing on here. I just noticed actually I keep putting my arm in the way, don't I? But anyway, you're getting the idea, aren't you? So that's going to go there. But this has got to be done, you know, sort of just a couple of turns at a time to move us in. work. I see you got some more cold weather at home. So did we. What is it today? 30th, 31st? Snowed yesterday. In fact, there was a few flakes of snow this morning when I got up. But it's supposed to get up to 55. And I can't be bothered converting that. Who bleeding Ray? Timed that well, it's lunchtime. I wonder if this is how you're supposed to do it. I don't know. I think everything's going to be clear enough for the outer cover to go on. And there we go. We're on. Let me stick that through there while it's still moderately. Look at that, it's gone hard again. I'll use the hairdryer on that. But anyway, there it is, and it's completely up out of the way of the chain. It's right up here. Very good. So let's put the rotor on. Alright, so as I say, this goes on with these two flats fitting into a slot there. Then this will go on like that. Hooray! Then, hang on. Is that the one? That's the one I'd set to one side. Doesn't seem to be the right one. Actually, I would think it should be a big one to fit in there, wouldn't you? Let me go and look for it. Okay, it was right where it should be. I wonder if there's a washer that goes under that. I bet there is. I bet there's a big washer that goes under that. So let me find the washer. We'll bolt that on there. And I'll heat this up here so that I can connect it in. Then we'll put the outer chain case on. Thought I'd show you the rubber grommets you get to seal in here. As I say, they're a split grommet, so you don't have to get a heart attack when you forget you've put them on. So you put them on there, one on there, and I'm getting in the way again. Okay, one on there, then there you see, push down. Ooh. They push down, so keeping you in pitch, into there like that. And this one pushes down into there. And then that, everything's, I suppose I should have showed you that, is sort of chamfered to fit onto these things, so that when that goes on there and the little screw goes in there, it squeezes them up and you get a nice seal. So if ever you look at an Enfield and you're worried about these holes, it's because the grommets aren't on the outside, the grommets are actually inside. Of course, it might mean that there's no grommets there, but there we are. Done. So as I say, let me warm that up so I can bend it, and then we can connect that up. Everything's tucked in now, wires are connected, so everything there's as it should be. So the last thing is to put the outer cover on and the wonderful Enfield gasket. I mean, when you think about this, this is at the time when AGS and Matchless and what have you were using tin, sheet metal chain cases. They'd both have a lip on them. The inner and the outer would have a lip, and then you'd have like an aluminium band that went right round with a bolt through this end that you tightened up so it pulled the band in, and there was a rubber seal in there. Oh, that's what they called it. So this was quite a revelation. So that goes in like that. I put a little bit of grease in just so it went in easier. So put that in, and dirty but it'll do. Just clean that up. Then only one bolt. Again, I bet you there's a washer for that. Let's have a little look. That goes on, and that seals that up. So I have exhaust pipe put on, footrest, rear brake lever. I won't bore you with just bolting them on. I will bring you back and you can see it in all its finished glory. I'll show you how the exhaust pipes are held in on the Enfields. As you can see, they don't come straight out, sort of parallel with each other. They come out at an angle, so they're coming away from each other. So what there are is on the bottom of each pipe, whoop, I just dropped a washer. Yeah, on the bottom of each pipe there's a slotted mounting, and you get a rod that goes across. It has a nut on the inside, and then there's a nut, a nice nut that goes on the outside. Oh, I guess they don't have a washer on the outside. If they do, it's a very small one. The idea being that when these things are tightened up, they're pulling the pipes in. So in other words, the pipes can't come out, because if the pipes start to come out, they're going to move apart because of the angle they're coming at. So that sort of tie rod holds them all in. So let me tighten that up, and then we'll get on a bit more. Pipe on with its cross piece and the footrest and the silencer. I've still got to buy 2 clamps, because with this extra piece in here, the silencers actually needs I think it's a 2-inch clamp, and I haven't been able to find one. I bet you Hitchcocks have one, but what you won't believe this I haven't found is a brake pedal. I'm damned if I can find it. So what I'm going to have to do is look at the first couple of videos when I was dismantling the bike and see if I take one off. And if I take one off, then it's somewhere, probably painted, probably put carefully to one side. So let me put the oil in, and we'll put some petrol in and see what happens. Right then, let's see what's happening. Got a leaky petrol tap and a leaky carb, so minor, we can deal with that. So let's see what's what. Now don't forget also, I've got a concentric on here, so we're going to have to play around with the carburation. good. And the ammeter went across as well, so we're getting a charge. I guess a little tinkering and we should be good. Right, so as I say, a little bit of tinkering. I think this video is about long enough. I know you're dying to hear it run properly, but I'll pop the car back off, and I did put all new gaskets in, so I'm not sure why that's flooding, but as I say, that's minor taking that off. And well, you know, we were hoping with the petrol tap, I don't know if I can get new little washers or if I can make some, we'll see. Anyway, we're already past our normal weekly day for your video, so hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks again for watching, for subscribing, for all the nice comments, and for 1 or 2 gifts. So let's call it a day for today. Who knows, maybe only in a couple of days I'll pop up a short video with this running properly, and then this project's done. So go off and enjoy yourselves.